I mean, first of all, thank you, Paul, for coming, taking the time. I know, obviously, with what you have going on, you're a super busy guy, and totally appreciate it. And
My pleasure.
I think these are fun things. So here we are today, another 4C Group podcast. Our special, I would say, our superstar guest, Paul Benson, who has been in the real estate market for a long time. It says, so Paul, co-founder and CEO of the Engel Volkers Gestalt Group currently, right?
Absolutely.
Right. This says overseeing 30 offices, but apparently I'm a little off base. It's 55, you said?
54.
54 offices currently, which includes Utah, California, Nevada, Arizona.
You're doing pretty well. Washington State. Colorado. And obviously EV, focusing on the high-end custom luxury market. Are all 54 of those offices, are those all in luxury markets? Is that the main focus, or? Engel Volkers started in Hamburg, Germany, almost 50 years ago, and the belief is high level of service. And so the combination of high level of service generally yields ultra luxury. But no, we're in Reno, we're in Salt Lake City, we're in a lot of areas where we believe luxury is not a price point, it's the level of service. So we do exceptional in places like Zephyr Cove or St. Helena or Aspen or Park City, where it is all luxury, but we do just as well in markets where homes are under $1 million.
Taking that same kind of the Gestalt, which I thought right before we got on, you were explaining what Gestalt stands for.
Yeah, our core value system kind of centers around the name of the holding company for the offices, which is Gestalt Group. And Gestalt is, simply put, we are stronger together than we are individually with the sum of our parts. So collaboration is everything. And in luxury real estate, it's a team sport, so collaboration matters.
And I think, one of the reasons why I wanted to, walk you around our office and kind of show you where the 4C Group is at today, because when we first met, the 4C really was just an architecture firm. We focus on high-end luxury, but over the last 22 years, that's one of the things we realized is like, none of these projects can be put together as a single team. And I think, and you may notice this from the real estate side, but there's always been this, you have your architect and you have your contractor. And it seems like even the attorneys and everybody, there's always kind of this headbutting force that kind of doesn't necessarily mean that collaboration, what's best for the client. And, something that I realized, starting as an architecture firm and then getting to work with a lot of the, fantastic contractors, is when you had a great contractor that was on board and we all set forth for a common goal, then that project went so much better. And so if we could all get on that same team and collaborate, I mean, that's what I would say, the very first project we met on, Riverbend Ranch, that's where I actually met Josh Phillips, who's now the co-founder of the 4C Group with construction. That was one of our first projects. And, he always had that mindset of, collaboration. I think that's why that project, turned out so well. And I think the first time when you sold it after the big remodel, that broke the record for the highest priced non-ski and ski out house in Utah, right?
Sure did. Seems like a deal now.
It seems like a bargain, right? I think it was like
retraded a few times higher, but back then the house and the land combined for 32 million.
Yeah, which.
Yep, and it is interesting because I look back. I didn't have a big team then. It was me as the real estate agent, and it was you.
Yeah,
right. It was you, and it's kind of like walking upstairs today and looking at your team and where it is. I think it's clear we've both gone down this path that the bigger our team, the better our team, the stronger our team. Hey, we're happy with that. It's about the team, and I love that. I loved everything today walking through here because seeing you over the years grow into this, it's pretty wild to see.
Yeah, and just as we were talking before, you go into 54 offices, all over the basically Western U.S. and global clientele. Me coming from I would say mom and pop shop, working out of my home office for several years. After 2008, 2009, we kind of talked about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you bring up a good point about this. I think Riverbend Ranch is a great example of that, because that was a team when we tried to sell it. I remember we were hosting these events. The owner was like, we have to make sure we have the architect out here. Obviously the you as the real estate agent, but it was this amazing opportunity that really opened my eyes to like not only the luxury market, because at the time that was one of the largest projects that, the commissions that we have gotten. But then to work with you, seeing what your team does, and then basically hosting these events, what I would say in a very difficult market where these guys are trying to sell this highest priced home in Utah right after, what I would call almost the Great Depression, right? The second Great Depression, right? And, and we pulled it off, and it ended up being that record sell. So I always felt that was I always have very fond memories of.
Well, we didn't rehearse this, but what you just laid out there, I had forgotten some of the pieces and just how important they are to today, because so the events you're talking about, they were a lot of fun. We had skeet shooting, we had archery. I think I broke my photographer's arm on a motorcycle that day.
I have a story like, yes, I remember that day exactly.
Yep. But the agents that came from out of town to that event, well, not only did one of them help me find the buyer at her event in Tahoe, but they were the first people to join me at Engel and Volker's in those cities to help start this group, that same group, coincidentally, because of that event, because they got to see if we work together across state lines and across city lines with the architect and with the owner of the home. And that whole teamwork concept is actually where the ideas came for me to say, hey, I want to go up my own company and do it with these other groups and collaborate more. That's actually where it started, was Riverbend Ranch.
So I remember the whole thing. So that client, they had a commercial space in town, right, at the Silver Mountain building.
Sure did.
Right? And I was actually using that. They just like, hey, Solim, you can just go use that space. You can have meetings there, all these things. And I remember one morning you called me and you're like, hey, Solim, is your stuff still in that space? Because I'm over here and I'm starting a new brokerage, and like if you need to stay here for a little bit, it's fine. But I just talk to the client, and we're moving in there, and I'm starting a brokerage. And I remember like literally you picked. I don't remember the circumstances, but basically you made that decision. Hey, I'm starting EV. We're moving there. We're taking over this space in Silver Mountain. I guess that was the first.
Yep.
Office. That was the first office. So actually, it's kind of fun having this conversation, thinking about like that was actually the starting point for your 54 offices, was that moment in time. And so actually now I feel pretty cool that I was kind of, I don't want to say I was part of it, but
I
was able there to experience the first. I can always say like I have a special connection to Paul because he actually kicked me out of my office space so he could start EV. And so I guess that was a worth,
I was thinking you just designed a great home that made it easy for me to sell, and it kicked it all off.
Yeah, so that's amazing that was the very first office, which, do you remember the date, when you started that?
Engel Volker, we moved in there in October of 2014.
Okay, so yeah, that was, hey, so I guess what's interesting, it's really these great clients. It's really the clients that bring us all together when it comes down to it.
It's all about the client. And I think if we all have that mentality, it kind of brings us together around them.
And so that, let's go over it. So we got a little sentimental here. So, which I think that's amazing. I think that's amazing that I got to witness that growth. I think it's fun now. You got to come back after what you've been doing. And, maybe I'm a little behind you, but I feel like maybe I'm picking up some steam with the 4C group, and I think it was really fun to kind of tour you around the office today and see where we're at. So
I've got a few cities you can grow in.
I have some questions down here that we're definitely going to discuss about growth in the future. And I'd love to get your input on that. So talks here. So a couple of highlights, I guess. So obviously we know you specialize in ultra luxury properties. And I would say, like, from my experience, just being in, Park City the last 22 years, anytime somebody wants to sell a house and set a record or be like, they think their house is the best, your name is always in that conversation for, like, we're going to have Paul Benson. Like, they could have all these other agents, but when that special property comes up, they're like, we're just going to have Paul Benson listed. I mean, I don't know how you, I don't know if you have some insight to that, but I think it's pretty incredible that your name is in every one of those conversations with clients.
Well, I do remember. I remember the turning point for me. I did a collaboration with Outside Magazine, and I focused on Park City, and kind of what I think would be the reason people bringing money and buying luxury homes to Park City would be as far as lifestyle. And I got a few interviews right from that article the moment it hit. And I remember one of the interviews, I walked in and I fell in love with the home. And I said, this is a $12 million home. And all of the other agents in town had said, no, it's 6 or 7 million. And I actually said, do not list with Paul because he overprices every home and it will never sell. Do not list with Paul. And I'm thinking, well, I sell every home I ever list sooner or later, but okay. But I gave all my reasons why, and sellers, of course, want to hear the higher dollar. But I was being honest. To me, this is a $12 million home. It was one of the nicest homes in town, not on a ski area at the time, and we sold it with multiple offers a couple weeks later. And I remember the neighbor coming in saying, the reason I'm about to list my home with you is not because you just got that $12 million, but because of the conversation at the cocktail party I was at last night, where everyone was talking about their agent talking them into a price that will sell fast. And we all came to this consensus. You were the only guy in town that was actually pushing us higher than where we wanted to be. And it wasn't me telling them what they wanted to hear or anything like that. I just wanted, like, when you get to work with clients that are not when they say, I'm not in a hurry to sell, I want to get the top dollar, then I feel it's on us to market the home until we get there, because it benefits the builder, the architect, the seller, myself. That team has to kind of go in there with a common goal that we're going to set a record, and you do.
And I think part of, hearing you talk about it is you do hear about those agents that go in and basically they're trying to overprice or whatever, or they want to underprice it so it sells quick. But when I hear you talk about a house and that value, is you have conviction behind that price that you're trying to set.
Got to be able to defend it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had our last big sale was the $65 million home last November. And, we sat down with the seller and he said, there's no comps for my home. Like, where would you get a price? And so we kind of sat there and built it together. Like, what would it cost today to build this home? Because he started 7 years ago. So what would it cost today to build this home? And as we did all the math, it came to $65 million. And I said, I can defend this if you're comfortable with this. He looked at me and said, if you're crazy enough to try this, I'm in.
Yeah.
But it was defendable. It absolutely 100% would cost that or more now, because that was pre-tariff.
Yep.
Pre-tariff conversation. And but here we are. It obviously sold. But I think if you truly can defend the pricing and you truly know the market and you know the difference between luxury and real luxury, then you do see the difference.
And I think, to that point is the value of the house is what somebody wants to pay for it.
100%.
I mean, if somebody's willing to pay $65 million, then the value is $65 million.
100%.
So there's probably a lot of jealousy in the market because you are that guy that you get to have the vision of, like, this is a $65 million house. Now, you're not just pulling that out of thin air. You're going back, like you say, how much would it cost to build? You're creating a story around what that house is and that vision for that house. And I think that's why, this is my perception, right? Why you're so successful in it, because it's not BS.
100%. But I also think comparing our market to other markets, when you actually take the time to go look at homes in other markets, if you go to Aspen, if you go to Sun Valley, if you go to Jackson Hole or Wilson, and you take a look at what's actually selling, or let's go to the cities of Beverly Hills or even Silverleaf and Scottsdale, and you see what is selling for 20, 25, 30, 80 million. We actually still, I think, because we have the workforce we do in Salt Lake City and the amount of homes we have here, it's still a pretty good deal.
Yeah,
I know that sounds crazy, but it is.
We talk about that all the time in the 4C group, and because let's face it, most clients come in here to build a custom house, luxury house. It's a second, third, fourth home. Now we do have some people that are in the Park City market and moving around and trading, but a lot of the new influx of people are from other areas, and it's still perceived to be a value. Like at Marcella, we're ski in, ski out. Yes, lot prices are $3, $4, $5, $6, $7 million, but you can go build a very, very nice luxury home for $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 a foot. Which, if you go to these other areas,
you can't do that.
You can't do it.
And also, you go to some of those areas like, let's call it Red Mountain and Aspen, not ski in, ski out. You're going to spend $25 million for that same lot.
Yep. Yeah, it's no joke. So back to this, you being this super agent, it says here basically consistently ranked, and this is for Utah, so you got to tell me, consistently ranked #1 agent in Utah by sales volume and closed over $2 billion in real estate transaction. Now I got to think that number's a little outdated, right?
It's outdated, yeah. I'm over $3 billion.
So let's hear it.
#1's hard. I've had many years where I was #1, but there's, I think it fluctuates every year as far as whether I'm 1, 2, 3. But always up there in a very competitive, heavy level. There's a handful of people in this state that do a lot of amazing transactions in real estate. So hats off to them as well. But definitely nationally, typically for single family residences and luxury homes, I'm pretty up there.
Yep.
Lucky.
Yeah, no, very lucky. So let's talk a little about this. This is an issue I've had a little bit as we scaled the company, and I feel like I finally got over the hump. But you as a top real estate agent, clients, how are all? So you have 54 offices. I mean, for the most part, you personally are selling a lot in Utah, Park City market, Scottsdale. What other markets?
I only personally sell here.
So you are not doing any? Okay.
No, so my other areas, we have about 1,400 agents, about 140-ish people on staff. Most of those are support, marketing, or just general support. The goal has been to create. The goal really started at Riverbend Ranch, and seriously, it was Gene Merkelbach who was there at the time from Lake Tahoe.
Tahoe, I remember. Yep.
We had an agent from San Francisco, and we were kind of putting together our heads as to how we could do more together, and we were each at brands or companies where, although they're national and talk about collaboration, everything is very local, and you're supposed to use the website for national, but to me, it's like getting in front of the clients before they got to Park City was always what I thought was important. So I wanted to build a company of like-minded people that would understand how to utilize that, and that's really how it started. Was taking a look at like who would we want to be with a brand. And Engel Volkers, in Europe, there's no MLS, there's no Zillow, there's no Realtor.com. So real estate is sold from relationship. It's sold from picking up the phone and calling someone else that has a book of business, and that's kind of what we were doing. So the idea was to put together those groups of agents in feeder market cities, and we would do a lot of events together and just let it grow. And I never imagined it would just get to a point where it just kept growing on its own to what it's become, and it's far past me now. I'm lucky to be part of it. The people that run it do an amazing job, and I'm there to support them and help them. I believe, in that upside down pyramid, the CEO's at the bottom and everybody else is above, and the clients at the top of that pyramid. And so it's a living, breathing thing on its own right now. But it really started from how do we do more together? How do we collaborate more together? How do we get my listings in those markets. So, to me, Scottsdale, LA, Newport Beach, San Francisco, they're my feeder markets, and especially Seattle lately with all the tech boom. And they are where our buyers come from Park City, and vice versa. How do I help those agents in those markets market to the clients here, so that when they're back there, there's credibility, and that's what it is.
I mean, that's a great point. I love this. I love the history hearing about in Europe, which I didn't realize there's no MLS. And so, I mean, for me, what's been amazing through, my own journey with 4C is we've never really advertised. Every now and then something in a magazine or this or that, but it's 100% been relationship based. And it all, I mean, you tell me, but I think in that high-end luxury market, there's a lot of property that trades before it even hits the MLS.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've often seen the journey like this. The marketing builds the credibility so that the sellers know that you're spending the money, but it rarely sells the home.
Yep.
It's almost always a referral or an event where you got to kind of talk about specific homes or areas, and somebody reached out to you, hey, what do you have in that area? But it is face-to-face.
Yep. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, okay, we have a website. We update the website. It's a great website. It provides lots of information. Do people hire 4C because they saw the website? No. We're doing Instagram, right? We're doing a podcast. I like, your point. The reason why we do that is to build credibility so that when somebody says, hey, you should go look at 4C, they look at us and say, oh, these guys are legitimate. They have a nice website. They're producing social media. Oh, look, they know Paul Benson doing an awesome podcast. But it's the relationship that actually brings in that client. It's not the marketing that's doing it. But it does help support it. So, I mean, and that's how, frankly, I've got to where we are today with basically very little marketing spend other than those things. And it's all just relationship based and making sure we become top of mind. And I would say for agents, our biggest referral source is through real estate agents, because you guys are the first touch with the client. The client's not flying in from, San Francisco being like, oh, I got to meet an architect. They're like, I need to go meet with my realtor, pick a lot. Well, what's the value now? And we talked a little bit about this at your sales meeting. What's the value I can bring to your sales agent that then that value gets transferred to now the potential client? Well, we can go out, and we're experts in what we do as architecture and interior design and constructions, and we can help set that vision, right? As you would say, when you're setting a price, we help create that story, that vision, that experience for that client. And if we can do that, I feel like that's a value add to real estate agents, because we're just helping facilitate that dream all the way through.
Yeah, excuse me. It really rang to me today how you've brought it all together. It's almost every project I've ever been on. The architect complains about the builder complains about the architect. They both complain about the designer.
Yeah.
Bringing it all together, I mean, to me, it's one of those things. I see it in so many different industries where each side wants to do what their specialty is. To serve the client, the goal is to make it easier. And if a client has the ability to walk into a shop where they have the best architecture, the best build team, the best design team that's bringing it all together, that's actually helping collaborate with the real estate agent on the lot, probably even with the developer.
Yep.
That's a package that you need to sing from the rafters, because that's what everyone deserves. Yeah,
and so not only with our core values, but our core focus at 4C is a luxury client experience. And really, you just spoke to it. That's a frictionless experience, right? What is the least amount of friction the client has to deal with to get from purchasing this property all the way to here's the keys, let's have some fun, right?
Absolutely. And people think people are out there picking their team by price or price shopping. Price becomes a factor because people don't always know how to communicate what they're frustrated with. And the frictionless part is what ties it all together. I think people are out there saying, hey, I would pay more for the frictionless. Not that you should charge more.
No,
but people are out there saying, that is what I want. Every conversation I have with somebody over the last several years has been, how do I save time? How do I get more time back in my life? How do I have more quality experiences? So the more we can collaborate to make it more seamless. Yeah.
Yep. And I think that's we heard a little bit about it, but we're going to be introducing the 4C collection, which is going to be, 4C custom curated homes. And I don't like to use the word semi-custom, but maybe that's the best fit, where now, as opposed to a client coming in, you were talking like, well, how long does it take to build, from scratch till I can move my house? Well, it's 3 years, right? It could be 3 years, 2.5 years. Well, if somebody can come in, right? Most of these are third, fourth, fifth homes. That doesn't mean that there's not those clients that want that full custom, but really, if somebody's coming to the Park City market, we kind of know what they're looking for. And if we have a range of product already available for where they can tweak it, maybe change the interior design a little bit, maybe have a few options, but get through that design process and have a very dialed construction, because we already know what we're going to do, and then have a fixed price associated with it. We feel like that's going to be that huge frictionless time saver that people are looking for. And I think that's going to be a great, offering to agents, as opposed to somebody coming out, seeing some old houses that need a remodel, trying to make the choice, well, do we just buy, some vacant land and go full custom? We feel like this will be a great option for them, where they're still able to, still make a few decisions, still customize it to where they want, but still have it done very quick and have that guaranteed price. And basically say, hey, come in, we could have a meeting. I would say 2 or 3 meetings with a client in a few hours. They can leave, go home, live their life, and they can come back in 16 months and we can be handing them the keys.
I would say there's a key in there that I think you should even sing louder, and that is that you are transparent. You're taking a process that it seems like everyone in the industry wants to make sound more complicated.
Yeah.
And I tend to find people want to add layers, and rather than here's the information, just the fact that you're trying to be transparent and make it easier. I mean, before you even open up whatever that is, whatever that product is, that's going to win a lot of trust. It's going to win a lot of people over.
Yep. So we're super excited about that. So let's talk a little bit about, I see a lot of in your posts, and what you talk about is you living the luxury life.
Uh-oh.
Right?
Okay.
I love this.
Okay.
So, and this goes back to when we first met. I was like, I was young, I didn't have a bunch of money to start my company, and I was like, man, I love Ducati motor, all these things. And every time I would think about something I want, I would show up, and then you would, like, one day you drive out and you got your nice Ducati 916. Next weekend comes out on your BMW 1200. I'm like, this guy knows what he's doing. Like, not only can he talk it, live it, but he's also, right? Not only can you talk about it and you have these clients, but you're also living it, which I think, to me, it's like, that's why we're doing it, right? Is to live this lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a fine line. I never want to come across that I have the luxury that our clients have. I'm here to serve, and I do believe that, and I do honor that, absolutely. But I also want to taste it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love and I love new adventures. Whether it's taking up sailing or motorcycles or heli-skiing, I love it all. I absolutely love it all. Great food, great wine. Love it all. And so I'm not afraid to work hard, play hard. And I probably don't save the way I probably should.
Yeah.
But I do want to enjoy it, because I want to be able to really have the right conversation regardless of who I'm with. And I think you have to find that common ground, and it has to be sincere. So if you can find that authentic common ground in various ways that are a little bit more of a reach for all, I think it gives you an edge to be able to service better and help.
Yeah, and I always say, when I say live the luxury lifestyle, I totally it's not like, oh yeah, we're spending all this money and this and that, but it is something that I feel like in my life, one of the first things I did was like, I wanted, my dream was to design luxury custom homes. Well, I was like, I grew up in Salt Lake, from a single mother. She was a school teacher, poor. I put myself through school. But the first thing I did is like, well, if I'm going to do this, I can't do it in my neighborhood where I'm at in Salt Lake.
Yep.
So I put myself on a limb. I said, I got to move to Park City. That's the only place right now that this product is happening. I got to put myself out there. And so I moved up here. I bought a lot in Promontory, got my foot in the door. And really that's where, I guess when I say I didn't spend money on marketing, that's where I spent my money on marketing, was to get my foot in the door. So I can have conviction behind what I sell, because I feel like if you don't taste it a little bit, you're not a believable person. And I don't feel like you can understand and sell things with conviction. And I don't know if that sounds the wrong way, but I feel like you still have, if you're going to deal with that clientele, your mindset needs to be in the same wavelength with them as well.
I think you have to be hungry.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Your why. You've got like similar journey. I certainly didn't grow up where my family would live in Promontory, right? But I remember having to get that lot, to get that membership to sit, in the gym or the steam room or wherever the heck it was, with the clients that ultimately you knew if you were doing business in this neighborhood at this price point, your income would be higher than if you were in, a typical regular old neighborhood. And I'm thinking, you're going to work as hard. You're going to put in the same amount of hours. Why not go for the luxury homes? I was obsessed with luxury homes. I mean, since I was old enough to drive, all I would do is stalk luxury homes.
Yep.
Try to figure out who lived where and stalk them, and even got chased out of a few neighborhoods as a kid. But, I wanted to see those homes.
Yeah. I mean, I feel very similar. That, I dreamed about it. I watched Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous with Robin Leach. Like, I mean,
had him in my car once.
Yeah, right. It's like, I mean, but I think that, that's the passion for what we do, right? Like, will I ever be able to afford a $10 million house? Probably not. But hey, I'll be able to build a very nice house. I would say live comfortably in that lifestyle. But what that allows me to do is now work with all these other people that, they could be a billionaire or whatever. But I feel like it therefore becomes relatable just because I love that experience. And I think that, to me, that's so important, that the joy of what we do. And it's obvious from talking to you about, all your past experiences, how much you just love being part of it. Like, you truly enjoy the passion of being able to like take somebody's house and be like, I'm going to sell this house. I believe this house is worth $65 million. This is an amazing product. I think that's fantastic.
And we're, living in Park City, whether you're golfing, hiking, biking, skiing, whatever it is, having that mindset, I think it gives you the edge you need. I remember going to one of the first records in Promontory. It's called Villa de Alci at the time. I think it was $12 million, but back before the Great Recession. And I walked in and I was in shorts. And I remember the seller was a little bit more formal, and he looks me slow motion up and down. What are you wearing? And I said, well, I figure we're going to, find your buyer on the golf course.
Yeah.
And he just started laughing. But that is the reality. That is where you're going to find the buyer for that home.
Yeah. So real quick, Casey, let's bring up this clip, because I think this speaks to exactly what you're talking about and where you're going. So Engel and Volker's real estate masterclass. Uh-oh. Technical difficulties.
Take one.
There is no real secret in real estate. If you use data correctly, you will succeed.
A lot of the time we want to make money immediately. There is no rich quick. There's hard work that leads to a great career, and that comes from the business relationships.
At the luxury level, people already know what they want, and it's not as though you're just a guide. You should feel more like a matchmaker.
The efficiency we get from using different technologies are great, but they do not substitute the human connection.
Taking a look at a very specific group of people that you want to attract, matching up with that lifestyle and getting into that world is more about truly living it. My name is Paul Benson.
My name is Debbie Dr. Chick.
I'm Phil DiRuggiero.
I'm Vanessa Fukunaga.
This is Andrew Karras, and this is the Engel and Volker's Real Estate Masterclass.
So I don't know if that, I just saw that like yesterday. So I'm assuming that's a fairly new,
It comes out actually about 60 days from now.
I mean, to
So
me,
it's
that
not done
looks,
yet, but we each spent hours on it, and it was a lot of fun. You know, each and every one of the people on that video, like Vanessa, for example, if you're in Cabo, you know, she has 16 offices in Cabo. She's the queen of Cabo. But if you're in Cabo, you're going to have an experience like you've never had before if you reach out to Vanessa. And not because you're there to buy a home or sell one of her homes, just you reach out to Vanessa, and she's going to make sure you have the keys to that city. And same for Andrew Caros in Vancouver. It's, you know, that's a group of people that absolutely believes that, you know, you have to like be a host of your town. You have to know your town, live your town, to really speak to what that luxury buyer is looking for, because they're moving to Park City for that lifestyle. So if you're not going to bike and ski and hike with them, what are you doing?
Yeah. What? And I think that goes to your point. Like, you only take listings in Utah.
Yeah, I do.
Right. That's amazing. So I have a question, or I'm going to ask for, you know, kind of wrap this up, ask for some advice. Obviously 4C Group, you see what we're doing, you see where we're growing, we're scaling. You've now taken your company and moved to 54 different locations. If you were to give 4C advice on what should be our next destination location that we should open up 4C Group number 2, what market would you select?
Oh, interesting question. I would say there's a handful, but only a handful.
Yeah.
You know, what I've witnessed here is first of all, you're experts in building ski homes and mountain homes. And I bring that up because often I see people bring their team, their dream team from California or Arizona or Vegas, or even from Salt Lake. And you bring that dream team up to a place that's going to have 400 inches of snow on the roof, and things can go wrong really quickly. Or where you build in neighborhoods where you actually have to stage your labor for certain times of the year because of the amount of people allowed through the gates or the amount of snow that neighborhood's going to get, to be able to honestly quote how long it's going to take to build that home, because you know that neighborhood and you know that HOA and you know those restrictions or those politics. And, you know, so that's a gift. And there's a handful of neighborhoods or towns such as Aspen, such as Sun Valley. I think a big up-and-coming place where we're going to hear a lot more about McCall, Idaho over the next 10 years. You know, I'm watching what they're doing with the Brundage Ski Resort, and Tamarac's going into new phases now. Such a beautiful town that still has, you know, fair pricing for what we do and sell. But, you know, the product is pretty exceptional. You know, I definitely see those areas as areas that I think you would, the clients are looking for what you have to offer, that level of service and that experience. I see a lot of opportunity in Scottsdale. What I'm watching is a migration towards, you know, certainly lifestyle areas, but lifestyle areas outside of, you know, all the turmoil going on in the cities. You know, so if you can look at areas in the West where people are leaving San Francisco, Los Angeles, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those cities. We are definitely seeing a migration pattern of adventure seekers. Yep. And you speak that language, and those are the people willing to really spend money on building something exceptional because they know the difference between exceptional and average. And so they need to find you.
Yep. So what's the location?
If I had to pick one, you want me to pick one?
I want you to pick one. I'm curious.
Aspen.
Okay. I mean, I that's definitely, I totally understand where you're coming from. Was like, there definitely is something to having experience building in this mountain environment. It's another beast than somewhere else. So we definitely feel that's a strength that we can go to. I mean, I love, you know, I think Scottsdale, and you know, we've even considered kind of looking out in the Napa area, but we feel like probably our strong suit is something in the mountain environment for the next move.
And what I'm seeing in Aspen is a lot of older homes either getting scraped or rebuilt right now, but at high volumes. Where I look at Napa and St. Helena, and it's more about the vineyard sales, and and not quite as much construction going on. And Sun Valley and McCall have some growth left but your level of service, having 55 people in this building right now. I went, how many floors? 4, 5,
Four
10,
floors.
15?
4 floors. I know.
So 4 floors of, every floor I went on, there's people.
Yep.
And with a good buzz, with a positive, one of the things when I look at all of my offices, you certainly wish every one of them had perfect, amazing culture when you walk in.
Yep.
Impossible. So you start really noticing areas where you see that culture when you first walk through the door, and you can feel it. Like I don't have to listen to a conversation. I can look across through the glass and I can tell if this office has that culture. And you have that. You have that buzz in the air where people are happy to be here and they're excited to be here. And to take that into some of these towns where people have, for whatever reason, been too busy or just have forgotten the word service, I see opportunity.
Yep, I agree 100%. Well, I thank you for that insight. Now that I got my word of wisdom from Paul, I think kind of to finish it off, I think I would love it for you. What advice would you give to a brand new agent that, hey, he's a young Paul Benson, he or she just loves luxury real estate? What would be the advice you would give him to start off?
Yeah, I would say you have to be true to the plan that you want, to the goal that you want. Too often I see people, they want to sell luxury homes, but they're taking everything and anything they can get their hands on. And I get that sometimes you have to do that, but you can't be something to everybody. You can't, you'll notice I don't do a lot of business in your typical family neighborhoods.
Yep.
That's not my specialty. I have learned that the agents that really do amazing in those neighborhoods, they know all the people in those neighborhoods. They probably have kids in those schools. They probably go to the HOA meetings. And I think you need to do that. I go to the charity events where my clients are, for example. So you don't, it's not like you have to have sold a big home to break into that market. There's actually less competition in the luxury market, frankly. But what you do have to do is start paying attention to what your clients are doing. Maybe it's a pet adoption, because no matter how much money you have, you might like dogs, right?
Yep.
Getting involved with those neighborhoods and those communities any way you can, and getting involved and marketing yourself and being true to what you post on Instagram, what you post on Facebook. Understand in today's world that every single thing that you put out there is going to stay there. So it becomes your calling card. It becomes your how people are going to view you. And if you're selling yourself improperly, sooner or later you're going to be in front of somebody with that $10 million home, and they look at you and they think, I don't think you can handle this home. So you really have to make that decision early in your career that you're going to make those decisions as if you're already successful in that world.
Yep. One of my favorite quotes is Stephen Covey: decide what you stand for and then stand for it all the time.
I love that.
I think you just gave great advice, but I think you just gave great life advice. Is you need to decide what you stand for, and then you need to make all your decisions that point you in that direction.
100%.
And that's it. So, well, Paul, this was awesome. Thanks for coming
Thank
by.
you.
I hope we can do it again sometime, and look forward to working together in the future.
Likewise. Thanks much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.